Today, the late Jim Thorpe is regarded as one of the greatest athletes of all time, and for good reason. He was the first Native American to become an Olympic gold medalist. He also became an NFL Hall of Famer and played for several Major League Baseball teams. Thorpe accomplished all of that while battling racial prejudice in the early 20th century, even being stripped of his medals.
Now his story will be told in a brand new documentary on the History Channel called Jim Thorpe, Lit by Lightning. Joining us now to tell us more about the special is award-winning director Chris Eyre. And Chris, forgive me if I mispronounced your last name. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate being here, and it's great to see both of you.
Great to see you as well. So, Chris, can you first just tell us more about Jim Thorpe and who he was and how he became a barrier-breaking athlete?
Well, Jim Thorpe's life is epic, and it's a name that everybody should know. He was the greatest athlete ever, and he's one of the greatest Americans who ever lived. He was a Sac and Fox Indian, born in the 1880s. He endured a lot of challenges in his life, namely his twin brother passing away at 9 from pneumonia. Both of his parents passed away by age 11. He was taken and put in the boarding school system, first at Haskell in Kansas, where he ran away multiple times. And then they took him to Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where he wasn't able to run away, and he was 11 years old. And he overcame incredible obstacles, but he was a phenomenal athlete that excelled in football. He started to win at the collegiate level because Carlisle Indian School played at the collegiate level. He beat Penn State, and he beat Harvard, which was a worldwide newspaper print article. He played against Army, people like Dwight Eisenhower, whose predecessors were part of the Indian Wars that actually were fighting against tribes and bringing tribes onto reservations, which was a newly formed system. And he went on to excel. He went on, despite all odds, to become the greatest athlete ever. And one of the things that marks that was the fact that in 1912, he won not only the decathlon, but the pentathlon, 2 gold medals that were reinstated as recently as 2022, if you can believe that, over 110 years later, because he was stripped of those medals through an opponent after those Olympics.
Just a powerful athlete. So talk about your approach here, Chris. How did you go about crafting his journey into this documentary that we're going to see?
Well, it was difficult to figure out what to tell of this epic life. And as a Native person, I wanted people to know about his victories. And so I focused on, his victories and what he was known for. He played professional baseball. He played some basketball. He was a championship ballroom dancer. He was in over 100 movies. He won 9 professional football titles. He won 2 gold medals in the Olympics. And so his life was just epic. And basically the inspiration was that he continued, despite his circumstance, to put one foot in front of the other his whole life. And he moved forward and was really the greatest of what Americans are by the sum of all of our parts. He's an inspiration and one of the greatest Americans that ever lived.
What a great story of resiliency. And I love to hear about the creative talents too, like the ballroom dancing and the acting. And Chris, there's obviously a lot of elements in play in Thorpe's story, but is there 1 or 2 messages you're hoping people will take away from this documentary?
I think one of the things that I found in looking at Jim Thorpe was his humility. There are stories where they had ticker tape parades of him in New York and on the Eastern Seaboard after his Olympic wins. And you can see pictures of him with his head down shyly, as a rural Oklahoman Native person. And he was a humble person. He was a humble man. And I think that's what I discovered in making this documentary. Like I said, it was before likes on social media. It was before celebrity endorsements and millions of dollars came into play. And he was doing it for a different reason. I think he was doing it because he had to, based upon everything that he'd grown up with and had taken away from him. But he's a source of inspiration because he did it because of the purity of competition and the purity of succeeding without the money and without the accolades that he found later. I think that was the thing. When I looked deep into Jim Thorpe, I realized how humble this person must have been.
All right, Chris, thank you so much. Sounds like a powerful documentary, and that film, Jim Thorpe, Lit by Lightning, will premiere on the History Channel next Monday, which is July 7th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Nice to chat with you this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Incredible. I just learned so much.
I know.
You know, it's a name that we've heard over the years, but to know just so many of the aspects of his life and what he had to go through as well. It's
Beyond the
powerful.
athleticism, many talents, of course.